Let me know where you're watching from, and you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. I never believed the future could look back at you until the last firework exploded above our street. New Year's Eve had always felt harmless to me. Loud music, cheap champagne, neighbors laughing in the cold air. That night was supposed to be the same. The calendar promised a fresh beginning, and everyone around me acted as if time itself could be reset with a countdown and a cheer. My name is Daniel Carter, and I was 32 years old when the future first noticed me. The neighborhood had gathered outside just before midnight. Strings of white lights wrapped around fences and porch rails, casting long, pale shadows across the snow. Children ran between adults holding sparklers, while their parents shouted warnings that sounded more like laughter. Someone down the block played old pop songs through a speaker that crackled every time the bass hit. I stood near the curb with my girlfriend Emily, her gloved hand wrapped around my arm. She leaned her head against my shoulder, smiling at nothing in particular. Emily loved New Year's Eve. She believed in signs, in fresh starts, in the idea that the universe paused just long enough to listen. "Look at the sky," she said softly. "It's so clear tonight." She was right. The clouds had pulled back, leaving the stars sharp and exposed. The moon hung low like a watchful eye. For a moment, I felt that familiar childish thrill, the sense that something important was about to happen. At 11:59, everyone began counting down together, voices overlapping imperfectly. 10:98, phones rose into the air, recording memories that would be forgotten by morning. My heart beat faster, not from excitement, but from a strange pressure in my chest, as if the air itself were growing heavier. When we reached 1, the first firework screamed upward, leaving a trail of white sparks. It burst directly overhead, filling the sky with blinding color. That was when I saw it. Inside the explosion, the light twisted, forming shapes that did not belong to smoke or flame. Lines bent into streets, buildings, faces. For less than a second, the firework illuminated a different version of our neighborhood. Darker, older, broken. I saw our street empty and burned, the houses hollowed out like skulls. Then I saw myself. I stood alone in the vision, older, thinner, my face carved with fear. Something tall and thin loomed behind me, its outline sharp against the burning sky. Its hand rested on my shoulder, possessive. The firework faded. The crowd cheered. Music resumed. No one else reacted. "Did you see that?" Emily asked, laughing as she hugged me. "That one was amazing." I couldn't speak. My mouth felt dry and my hands shook despite the gloves. I told myself it was a trick of light. Too much champagne. Too much imagination. But as more fireworks followed, I noticed a pattern. Each explosion showed a different fragment of what felt like a future that should not exist. A car crash at the corner. Police lights washing over snow stained dark. Emily standing on our porch crying alone. I turned away, but the images burned behind my eyes. "Daniel, are you okay?" Emily asked, her voice suddenly concerned. "Yeah," I lied. "Just cold." The countdown was over, but the pressure did not leave. It grew stronger with every passing minute, like a clock ticking somewhere deep underground. Around 12:15, the fireworks slowed. People began drifting back inside. Emily squeezed my hand. "Let's go home," she said. "We can open the champagne my sister gave us." As we walked toward our house, I noticed something wrong with the street lights. They flickered not randomly, but in sequence, one after another, like a signal. For a moment they spelled out a date in my mind, though no numbers appeared. December 31st next year. I stopped walking. "Daniel, what's wrong?" I looked back toward the dark sky where the last smoke trails faded. Somewhere above us, something had seen me. Something had shown me what it wanted. The final firework of the night ignited unexpectedly, shooting up from 2 houses down. It burst low and bright, forcing everyone to look. This time there was no doubt. The vision was clear and steady. I saw myself standing in our living room alone. The windows were boarded shut. The air was thick with dust. And behind me, reflected in the dark television screen, stood the same tall figure, smiling, though it had no face. The firework died. I screamed. The neighbors stared. Emily grabbed me, asking what was wrong, but I couldn't explain. How do you tell someone you just watched your life end before it began? As we went inside, I knew one thing with terrible certainty. I did not sleep that night. Even after Emily finally drifted off beside me, the images from the fireworks replayed again and again behind my closed eyes. Every time I tried to relax, I saw that tall figure standing too close, breathing down my neck from a future that should not exist. At 3:17 in the morning, my phone vibrated on the nightstand. I stared at the glowing screen, feeling a slow, cold dread spread through my chest. No one ever texted me at that hour. The message was from an unknown number. "You saw it too." My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who survived long enough to warn you." I sat up in bed, careful not to wake Emily. The room felt wrong, stretched as if the walls were listening. Outside, the street was silent. No cars, no wind, not even the distant sound of a train. Warn me about what I typed. The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then return. The last firework does not show possibilities, it shows certainty. I remembered the burned houses, the police lights, Emily's face twisted with grief. My throat tightened. "You are saying that future will happen unless you change the pattern." Before I could respond, another message arrived, this time with a photo attached. It was our street taken from the same angle as my memory from the firework. Snow blackened by ash, windows shattered, doors hanging open. The timestamp read, December 31st next year, 11:59 p.m. I locked my phone and stood up, heart pounding. I crossed the room and pulled the curtain aside just enough to look outside. Everything was normal, quiet, intact, untouched. But the sense of being watched was stronger now, like eyes pressed against the glass of time itself. "Daniel, what are you doing?" Emily murmured, half asleep. "Nothing," I whispered, forcing myself back into bed. But I knew nothing would ever feel normal again. The next morning, Emily laughed about my panic from the night before. She teased me gently, saying I had probably stared into the fireworks too long. I smiled, nodded, and lied. because how could I explain that the future had started texting me? At work, I could not focus. Every sound made me flinch. When a forklift backfired in the loading bay, I ducked under my desk, convinced for a split second that the vision of police lights had come early. At noon, my phone buzzed again. Same number. Do not trust reflections. I glanced at the dark screen of my computer monitor and felt my stomach drop. For a moment, just a flicker, I thought I saw movement behind my own reflection. I rushed to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my skin pale. Nothing stood behind me, but when I turned away, I heard a whisper, soft and intimate, brushing my ear. Soon, I spun around the bathroom empty. I left work early, claiming illness. On the drive home, every intersection felt dangerous. Every passing car like a threat waiting to unfold exactly as I had seen. I began to understand what the messages meant by pattern. The future was not random. It was following rules. At home, I searched online for anyone else who had seen strange things during New Year's fireworks. Buried beneath jokes and blurry photos, I found a small forum thread titled "The Wrong Firework." There were only 7 posts. Each described explosions, glimpses of events that later came true. Car accidents, house fires, disappearances. The last post was dated 3 years ago. The user never posted again. My phone vibrated. Patterns repeat because people repeat. I typed back fast. "Who are you really?" This time the reply took longer. My name was Michael Reed. My breath caught. "What happened to you?" Another long pause. I believed I could outrun it. The words felt heavy, final. It learned my habits, my fears, my love. It stepped closer every year. I thought of the figure behind me in the firework, hand resting on my shoulder. A chill ran through me. "What is it?" The reply came as a single word: "The Witness." That evening, Emily noticed my silence. Over dinner, she asked if something was wrong again. I almost told her everything: the messages, the visions, the name of the thing watching our future. But fear stopped me. If the witness learned through patterns, then knowledge itself was dangerous. I told her I was just stressed about the new year. Later, as she showered, I heard a soft knock from inside the television screen in the living room. A dull tap, tap, tap like fingernails on glass. The screen was off. I stood frozen as the knocking continued, slow, patient, knowing I would look. I did not, but in the dark reflection, I could see a shape, tall and thin, leaning closer, waiting for the moment. I repeated the mistake of looking directly at my future. That night I understood something terrifying. The witness did not just observe, it prepared. And by the 3rd day of the new year, I understood that time itself had become hostile. The hours did not simply pass, they watched. Every routine I followed felt recorded, measured, stored somewhere just beyond sight. Michael Reed had warned me about patterns, and now I saw them everywhere. I stopped looking at reflective surfaces. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. I shut my laptop before the screen went dark. I even avoided the windows at night, afraid of what might be standing just behind my own silhouette. Emily noticed. "You are acting like the house is haunted," she said, half joking, half concerned. "Maybe it is," I almost replied. Instead, I told her I was trying to detox from screens, a weak excuse that she accepted with a shrug. The messages continued. "Do not go where you went yesterday. Change the order. Break yourself." Each instruction arrived without explanation, sometimes minutes apart, sometimes hours. I followed them all. I took different routes to work, skipped meals, walked into random stores just to alter my schedule. The more I obeyed, the more desperate the messages became. "It is learning slower now." That sentence should have comforted me. It did not. On Friday night, Emily went to visit her sister. The house felt enormous without her presence. Silence filled every room, thick and oppressive. I sat in the living room, lights on television muted, staring at nothing. At 9:12, my phone buzzed. "Tonight it will try to speak." I typed back immediately. "How?" Through memory. The lights flickered once. I stood up, heart racing. The air felt charged, like before a storm. Somewhere in the house, something shifted, a soft, deliberate movement, not masked by floorboards or pipes. "Daniel," the voice came from the hallway. It was Emily's voice. I froze. Emily was not home. "Daniel, come here." The tone was perfect, warm, familiar, carrying the exact inflection she used when she wanted to show me something. My legs moved, despite my mind screaming not to. Halfway down the hall, my phone vibrated again. "Do not answer it." I stopped inches from the bedroom door. The voice came again, closer now, as if standing just on the other side. "Why are you scared?" My reflection appeared faintly in the dark wood of the door. For a split second, another shape overlapped it. Taller, thinner, leaning in. I stepped back. The voice changed. "You saw me first." The lights went out. In complete darkness, the voice whispered memories only Emily knew. Our first trip, our private jokes, the promise we made last New Year's Eve about buying a house. Each word was a hook, dragging me closer. I screamed her name and ran back to the living room, slamming the door behind me. The lights snapped on. Silence. My phone vibrated violently. "It can only use what you give it. Stop remembering." I slid down against the couch, shaking. My mind raced, trying to understand the rule. The witness was not invading randomly. It was stepping through the paths I left open, through routine, through memory, through reflection. At 11:45, another message arrived. "You are still on schedule." I stared at the time. That was the exact moment the fireworks had begun counting down 3 nights earlier. What schedule? I typed. The reply came slower, heavier. "The one where you watch the last firework again." I realized then that no matter how much I changed my habits, some events were anchored, fixed points in time that pulled everything back into alignment. At midnight, there were no fireworks, but I heard them anyway. Distant echoes that rattled the windows, though the sky remained dark. In my mind, I saw the explosion clearly brighter than before. This time, it showed a future closer, more detailed. I was standing in the same hallway, older, exhausted. The towel had fallen from the mirror, and behind me, The witness stood so close I could feel its breath. I collapsed onto the floor, gasping. My phone buzzed one final time that night. Next year you will not be alone. As dawn broke, I understood the truth. The future did not need to. The following week proved that the witness no longer needed darkness to reach me. Daylight did not weaken it. Routine did not hide me. And Emily was no longer untouched by what had begun. It started with small things. Emily misplaced objects constantly. Her phone, her keys, her wallet. She accused herself of being distracted. Laughed it off, but I noticed the pattern immediately. Each missing item forced her to retrace her steps, to repeat movements she had already made. Patterns repeat because people repeat. Michael Reed's words echoed in my head. On Tuesday, Emily stopped mid-sentence while telling me about her day. Her eyes unfocused, her smile froze. For a moment she looked past me, then she blinked and continued talking as if nothing had happened. "What did you see?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She frowned. "I don't know." It felt like remembering something that had not happened yet. My stomach twisted. That night, the messages returned after 2 days of silence. "It has found a second anchor." My hands shook. "Leave her out of this." There was no immediate reply. "You cannot choose who the future touches." I slept in short, broken fragments, listening to Emily's breathing beside me, counting each rise and fall, as if it could disappear at any second. On Thursday, I came home early and found Emily standing in the hallway, staring at the bathroom mirror. The towel I had hung there lay crumpled on the floor. "Emily," I said slowly. She did not respond. Her reflection moved. Not much, just enough. I grabbed her shoulders and pulled her back hard. She gasped, startled, suddenly present. "What is wrong with you?" she snapped. I apologized, blamed stress, but the image burned into me. For half a second, the reflection had smiled, when Emily did not. That evening, my phone buzzed relentlessly. "It is closer now." She is visible to it. The words felt like a sentence being read aloud. I typed furiously. "How do I stop it?" The reply took longer than ever. "You do not stop it. You redirect it." The message was followed by a location pin, an address across town, an abandoned neighborhood scheduled for demolition. Why there? Because it has already been there. I did not tell Emily where I was going. I claimed I needed air. The drive felt unreal. Street lights blurring into lines, time stretching thin. When I reached the address, my headlights illuminated a row of dark, empty houses, windows, boarded roofs sagging. The air was colder here, heavier. Inside the nearest house, graffiti covered the walls, symbols layered over one another like desperate prayers. Candles burned low on the floor, though no one was present. Someone had tried to map the future. In the center of the living room stood a tall, blackened mark on the wall, shaped like a person burned into plaster. My phone vibrated. This is where I failed. "Michael," I whispered his name into the empty house. It listened to my fear. The temperature dropped sharply. The witness stepped out of the mark, not fully, not physically, but enough. The air bent around it. Shadows stretched toward it unnaturally. I felt pressure against my chest as if an enormous weight leaned in. "You are early," it whispered, using my own voice. I ran. I did not remember the drive home. When I burst through the front door, Emily was standing in the living room, lights off, television dark. She turned slowly. Behind her in the black screen, I saw it clearly this time. Tall, thin, smiling, without a face. "Daniel," she said calmly, "it says we should not fight the future." That was the moment I understood the worst truth of all. The witness did not need segment 5. After that night, I stopped pretending there was a version of my life where this ended quietly. The witness had crossed a threshold. It had spoken through Emily. It had stood inside our home. And worst of all, it had offered agreement instead of violence. Consent was its doorway. Emily slept peacefully as if nothing had happened. In the morning, she kissed my cheek, made coffee, and talked about weekend plans. But something in her eyes had shifted. Not possession, alignment. Every choice she made nudged us back toward the same invisible path. I waited until she left for work before checking my phone. A new message waited. "You still have time." I stared at the words. Time for what? To choose where it stands. My pulse quickened. "You said I could redirect it." "Yes." "How?" "By giving it a better witness." I understood then that the witness was drawn to observation, to moments where futures branched, and someone stood close enough to see both sides. Fireworks, reflections, memories, mirrors. It fed on awareness. It did not just watch futures. It needed someone to stand still and look. I typed slowly. "You want me to replace it?" "No." The reply came. "You want it to replace you." I dropped the phone. All day I thought about that message. If the witness required consent and a witness, then perhaps it could be trapped in a single moment, anchored to a single observer forever. That night I returned to the abandoned neighborhood alone. Snow fell softly, muting the world. Inside the marked house, the air felt familiar, heavy, like a held breath. The burned silhouette still stained the wall. I stood in front of it, heart pounding. "I know you are here," I said. The shadows shifted. "I am always where you look." It stepped closer, not fully visible, but close enough that the air vibrated. "I will give you what you want," I said. Silence. "I will witness." The pressure increased, but only one moment. The shape paused. I raised my phone and opened the photo Michael had sent me of the burned future street. "This is the future you showed me," I said. "This is the one you want." I placed my hand against the burned mark. "Take me there." The house vanished. I stood on our street as it appeared in the vision, blackened, empty, silent. The sky burned red with distant fires. The witness stood inches away, taller, clearer than ever. "Witness it," it whispered. I did. I stood still. I did not run. I did not resist. I watched as time froze around us. The witness leaned closer and closer until it filled my vision, and then it stopped. Confusion rippled through it. It could not move past me. I was the witness now. The world snapped back. I collapsed in the abandoned house, gasping. My phone buzzed one last time. "You have delayed it, but not ended it." As I drove home, dawn broke pale and weak. Emily was awake, waiting for me, eyes searching my face. "Did you see it?" she asked softly. I nodded. She smiled sadly. "It will wait." And I realized the final horror. Every new year, every last firework, someone will stand too close. I believed the choice I made would contain the witness. I was wrong. It did not break free violently. It leaked quietly, patiently into the world beyond me. The days after the abandoned house felt stretched thin like old film. Emily returned to normal routines, but the alignment in her movements grew more precise. She woke at the same minute every morning. She stopped changing routes while driving. She repeated phrases without noticing. Patterns were stabilizing. The messages stopped entirely. That frightened me more than any warning. Without Michael, without guidance, I was alone with the consequences of my decision. I had become a fixed point, a landmark the future could measure itself against. On January 10th, the local news reported a strange incident. A man had collapsed during a fireworks rehearsal for a summer festival, claiming he saw his own death in the sky. The footage showed him screaming, pointing upward at nothing. My chest tightened. That night, Emily watched the clip on her phone. "People are imagining things lately," she said calmly. "Like time is sick." I looked at her sharply. "Why would you say that?" She shrugged. "It just feels right." The witness was no longer limited to me. At work, I overheard co-workers describing vivid dreams of dates, times, exact moments. One woman insisted she knew the day her house would burn. Another said she had stopped using mirrors because her reflection blinked out of sync. Observation was spreading. The witness did not move faster. It multiplied. I finally received a message 3 weeks later. "You created an opening." I typed back instantly. "I stopped you. You delayed yourself." The words landed like a verdict. The witness required witnesses. By standing still, by agreeing to observe, I had taught it how to replicate its need. Every person who looked too closely at their future became another anchor. I realized the truth too late. Fireworks were only the beginning because they trained people to look up together, to expect revelation. I returned to the abandoned house again, desperate for answers. The burned mark had changed. It was wider now, distorted as if several figures overlapped. "You are not alone anymore," I whispered. The walls answered with echoes, not voices. That night, Emily did not come to bed. I found her in the living room, standing inches from the dark television screen. "Emily," she did not turn. "Do you see it too?" she asked softly. "See what?" The pause lasted too long. The place where everything stops. I pulled her away, heart racing. "You cannot look anymore," I said. She frowned, genuinely confused. "Why would I want to look anywhere else?" That question shattered me. The witness had learned its final lesson. If one witness could delay it, many could sustain it forever, and the future would never need. By February, the world felt crowded with unseen observers, not people watching people, but futures watching the present, waiting for someone to stand still long enough to lock them into place. The witness had become less like a being and more like a process, and I was the proof that the process worked. Emily no longer argued when I asked her to avoid mirrors or turn off screens. She agreed too easily. Compliance had replaced curiosity. She moved through the days as if following instructions she could not hear. I began writing everything down, times, phrases, gestures. I mapped routines the way investigators mapped crime scenes. What emerged terrified me. The more people tried to avoid seeing the future, the more often they encountered it indirectly through reflections, through shared stories, through through other witnesses. Avoidance created curiosity. Curiosity created observation. Observation created anchors. There was only one way left to break the chain. Stop observing the future entirely. The idea came from an unlikely place. A news article buried deep online about a remote town where no fireworks had been allowed for decades. No celebrations, no countdowns, no public clocks. The residents claimed it reduced anxiety. What it really reduced was synchronization. I showed the article to Emily. "What if we left?" I asked. "Just disappeared somewhere quiet." She read it slowly. "Running creates patterns too," she said. The sentence did not sound like her. That night I received a message from an unfamiliar number. "You are thinking in the right direction." "Michael," I typed. "Yeah." "How are you still here?" "I am not." The words chilled me. "I learned something after you about breaking witnesses." I sat up. "Tell me." "You cannot destroy observation. You must isolate it." The message included coordinates far north near an old decommissioned observatory. Why there? Because it was built to watch the future and abandoned when it started watching back. I did not tell Emily where I was going. I left before dawn, driving through empty highways as snow began to fall again. The observatory rose from the hills like a blind eye, pointed at the sky. Inside, dust coated everything. Star charts covered the walls, their dates scratched out. In the central dome, the massive telescope was aimed downward, not up. At the base, someone had written a sentence over and over. "Do not look ahead." My phone vibrated. "This place can trap a witness." How? By forcing it to observe itself. I did not understand until the air grew heavy and the familiar pressure returned. The witness emerged not from shadow but from alignment lines intersecting around me. It was clearer now, more defined. "You seek to end watching it," said calmly. "I seek to end you." It tilted its head. "Then you must look at me fully." The trap was obvious and unavoidable. To isolate the witness, I had to observe it completely without flinching, without imagining a future beyond that moment. I stared. The world narrowed. Time slowed. The witness leaned closer, expecting release, expecting agreement. Instead, I refused to imagine anything. No future, no outcome, no escape. Just now, the pressure screamed. The observatory shook. I collapsed, gasping. When I woke hours later, the dome was silent. My phone buzzed. "You weakened it," but did not finish. As I drove home, one thought repeated endlessly. The witness could only exist where futures were imagined. To end it, the idea of living without a future felt impossible at first. Every human thought leaned forward by instinct. Plans, memories, hopes, fears, all pointed ahead. To erase that impulse meant erasing something essential, and yet the witness thrived on that exact reflex. I returned home from the observatory changed, not victorious, emptied. The pressure that had followed me for weeks was weaker, but it had not vanished. It hovered like a migraine just behind my eyes. Emily sensed it immediately. "You feel different," she said quietly over breakfast. "I am trying not to think ahead," I replied. She smiled faintly. "That might be harder than you think." That was the problem. Emily no longer spoke only for herself. The alignment in her voice had sharpened. She had become a relay. The city began to change around us. Community boards advertised prediction nights where people shared visions and compared dates. A radio show gained popularity, inviting callers to describe moments they were certain would happen. The witness was teaching people to watch together. I stopped listening to news. I removed calendars from the walls. I disabled reminders on my phone. I forced myself into the present with brutal discipline. Eat when hungry. Sleep when tired. Walk without destination. For a while it worked. The messages did not return. Then on February 28th, the sky cracked open, not with fireworks, with silence. At exactly 7:30 p.m., every electronic screen in the city went dark. Phones, televisions, billboards, even traffic lights froze on yellow. People stepped into the streets, confused, afraid, and above us, the sky shimmered. I did not look. I closed my eyes and focused on my breath. Around me, I heard gasps, screams, whispers of revelation. Someone shouted a date. Another screamed a name. The witness was feeding. Emily gripped my arm tightly. "Daniel, you have to see this." "No," I whispered. "We agreed." She hesitated. That hesitation saved me. The power returned. The sky dimmed. The moment passed. That night, the message arrived. "You are becoming difficult." "Good," I typed. The reply came slower than ever. "Then you must be removed." I felt no fear, only exhaustion. The witness could not force observation. It could only invite or eliminate. I understood what it wanted next. A public witness, a sacrifice. The next morning, the city announced a massive New Year rehearsal event scheduled for March 1st. Fireworks at dusk. A test, they said. A trap. Emily looked at me, searching my face. "We are going to watch," she said. "No," I said firmly. She frowned, confused, angry, frightened all at once. "Everyone will be there." "Exactly." That night I packed a bag. "If I leave, will it follow?" I asked my phone. The answer came instantly. "It already has." I kissed Emily goodbye while she slept. For the first time in months, I allowed myself one future thought, that she might forgive me. As I drove out of the city, the sky behind me glowed faintly. I did not make it far from the city before the pressure returned. It was stronger now, focused sharp, as if the witness had finally decided where I belonged. The highway signs blurred past me, unread. Destinations no longer mattered. I pulled off at a rest stop just before dusk. The parking lot was empty except for a single maintenance truck idling near the far fence. The air smelled of cold metal and wet asphalt. My phone buzzed. Running only widens the circle. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. "What do you want from me?" I typed. "A stable ending." The words felt wrong. Final, not an end, but a seal. The citywide rehearsal was hours away. Even here, miles from the crowd, I could feel the collective anticipation building like static in the air. Millions of people thinking forward at the same time, imagining the sky lighting up. The perfect feast. I understood then that distance meant nothing. The witness did not travel through space. It traveled through expectation. The radio crackled to life on its own. A calm voice filled the car. "Tonight we gather to look ahead together." I turned it off, shaking. Headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. The maintenance truck rolled closer, stopping beside beside me. The driver did not get out. Instead, the window lowered halfway. "You cannot miss this," he said without looking at me. I knew his voice, though I had never heard it before. Everyone has a role. I drove back toward the city. By the time I reached the outskirts, the sky had already begun to darken unnaturally early. Streets were blocked, crowds redirected toward open fields and parks. Screens advertised the rehearsal in cheerful fonts. "Test the future together." I parked and walked with the crowd, head down, eyes fixed on the ground. People laughed nervously, talked about visions they hoped to confirm. I felt sick. My phone vibrated one last time before I shut it off. You can still choose how it ends. At dusk, the first firework launched. I did not look. Around me, thousands of voices gasped in unison. The sound was wrong, deeper than thunder vibrating through bone. The ground trembled. Someone screamed a date. Someone else collapsed laughing. I felt a hand on my shoulder, warm, familiar. Daniel, Emily stood beside me, eyes wide, reflecting impossible light. "You came back," she said, smiling with relief. I closed my eyes tighter. "Please do not look," I whispered, but she already had. I felt the shift the moment she aligned completely. The pressure vanished, replaced by clarity. The witness no longer needed me alone. It had the crowd. The fireworks continued, each explosion locking more people into place. Freezing futures mid-arrival. I fell to my knees, covering my ears as the sky burned. This was the ritual, not death. Suspension. The future held open forever by those who refused to stop watching. And somewhere within that, the morning after the rehearsal, the city felt hollow, not damaged, not destroyed, simply paused. People moved slower, spoke softer, as if afraid that any sudden motion might crack something fragile hanging just above us. The news avoided words like disaster. They called it an anomaly, a shared psychological episode. Yet no one could explain why thousands of people described the exact same moment frozen inside the fireworks, the same unfinished future. Emily barely spoke. She followed me through the apartment, touching objects lightly, as if checking whether they were real. When she finally looked at me, her eyes held certainty, not fear. "It was beautiful," she said. That word terrified me. I checked my phone for the first time since the field. Hundreds of unread messages filled the screen. Friends, strangers, co-workers all asking the same question. "Did you see it too?" The witness had achieved saturation. Across the country, videos spread showing similar incidents. Small towns reported spontaneous countdowns appearing on digital signs. Firework tests canceled years ago suddenly resumed. People gathered without knowing why. The future was advertising itself. I received one final message. "This is the stable state." I typed back with shaking hands. What happens now? Nothing moves unless watched. I understood the horror of that promise. Progress required uncertainty. Change required blindness. Without it, the world would calcify into endless anticipation. We would never arrive anywhere again. That afternoon, Emily suggested we go outside. "Everyone else is," she said. I refused. She tilted her head the same way the witness once had. "You cannot hide from a future everyone is holding open." She left without another word. I followed at a distance through streets filled with murmuring crowds. People stared upward even in daylight, scanning clouds, reflections, windows. Observation had become instinct. At the central plaza, a large screen flickered to life unannounced. It showed fireworks from the rehearsal looping endlessly. The crowd gasped. I pushed forward, heart racing. "Stop watching," I shouted. No one listened. I realized then what my true role had always been. Not witness, interruption. I climbed onto the base of the screen and stood directly in front of it, blocking the image. People shouted angrily, "Move!" I stayed. I closed my eyes and spoke loudly. "There is nothing there." Some laughed, others hesitated. The image flickered. The pressure slammed into me, crushing breath from my lungs. I felt the witness focus fully for the first time. "You would blind them," it asked calmly. "I would free them." The pain intensified, memories, futures screaming at once. I refused to imagine anything. No tomorrow, no ending, just now. The screen went dark. Silence rippled outward. People lowered their heads, confused, afraid, angry. Emily stared at me, tears streaming. "Why would you do that?" "Because someone has to stop looking." As emergency lights filled the plaza, I collapsed, knowing one truth: the witness had not been destroyed. After the plaza went dark, the city did not return to normal. It learned a new behavior. People avoided large screens the way animals avoided open flames. Public countdowns were cancelled. Fireworks were postponed indefinitely. Silence became policy. I was released from the hospital 2 days later with no explanation and no questions answered. Officially, I had collapsed from exhaustion. Unofficially, no one wanted to discuss what happened when the screen went black. Emily did not come home. She left a single note written carefully, as if each word had been examined from every angle. "I need to understand what I saw." That sentence hurt more than any threat the witness had ever made. I stayed inside for weeks. I covered windows, removed mirrors, and learned to exist without forward motion, without plans, without anticipation. It was not peace, it was survival. The world adapted poorly. Without the shared future, people drifted. Economies stalled. Relationships froze. Decisions were delayed endlessly because commitment required imagining tomorrow. The witness was starving. I could feel it in the air, thinner, weaker, like a sound just below hearing. But starvation made it desperate. The messages returned. "You have broken the rhythm." "Good. You have made them blind." "Necessary. Then you must become visible." The words froze me. "What do you mean?" "If they cannot see forward, they will look at you." I understood the threat immediately. Humans needed something to observe. If not the future, then a symbol, a figure, a reason. Me. Reports began circulating online. Stories about the man who blocked the screen. Photos, videos, theories. Some called me a hero. Others blamed me for the global paralysis. They were all looking. I stopped leaving my apartment. That did not stop the pressure. One night, the television turned on by itself, showing static that slowly resolved into my own image. standing exactly where I was. Behind me, the witness flickered, weak but present. "You are the last alignment," it said quietly. I smashed the screen. Glass cut my hands, but the image persisted in every dark surface. Emily appeared in the reflection behind me. I turned. She was really there. "You cannot hide forever," she said gently. "People need something to believe in." I stared at her, realizing the truth. The witness did not need the future anymore. Becoming a symbol was worse than being hunted. When the world believed in me, it pressed closer than the witness ever had. Belief carried expectation, and expectation was only another shape of the future. I stopped going online, but the noise found me anyway. My face appeared on flyers, walls, screens that should not have been working. Some called me the interruption. Others called me the blind man. A few called me the reason their lives had stalled. They were not entirely wrong. Emily began visiting every few days. She spoke gently, always, steering the conversation toward what people needed, what the world was missing. "Hope," she said one evening as she sat across from me in the darkened living room. "Direction, something to look toward." I stared at her. "You sound like it." She did not deny it. The witness no longer whispered. It waited. It let humans do the work for it. Every rumor, every theory, every argument about me strengthened its outline. Michael appeared in my dreams, thin, hollow eyes filled with regret. "You should have vanished," he said. "I tried. You stayed visible." I woke shaking. The message arrived at dawn. "There is one final alignment." Where? Where belief began. The location was unmistakable. The plaza, the place where I had blocked the screen. Crowds were already gathering when I arrived. Hood pulled low. Candles lined the steps. Someone had painted my silhouette on the ground. I felt sick. Emily found me easily. "They are waiting for you," she said softly. "Waiting for what?" "For you to show them what comes next." I climbed the steps slowly. Every eye followed. The pressure returned heavier than ever. The witness spoke through the crowd. "Look!" Just once, I closed my eyes. If I disappeared now, if I vanished into the crowd, belief would fracture. The witness would weaken but not die. If I stayed visible, belief would crystallize forever. There was only one way left. I spoke. "There is no next." Murmurs rippled. No future to reveal, no vision to share, no ending to watch. The pressure screamed. I stepped backward onto the painted silhouette. "I am not your sign." The witness surged. I felt myself fade, not physically, but conceptually, like a thought losing meaning. People blinked, confused. My outline on the ground blurred, then vanished. The pressure lifted. When I opened my eyes, no one was looking at me. They were looking around, searching. I walked away unseen. The world behind me felt unanchored, frighteningly alive. For the first time since the world did not end after I vanished from belief, it staggered forward, uncertain and uneven, like a person relearning how to walk, without a fixed future to stare at. People began making small choices again. Imperfect, spontaneous human choices. I watched from the edges. No one recognized me. Not on the street, not in stores, not even when I passed mirrors. My reflection was faint, delayed, like a memory struggling to form. I had become background. At first, the anonymity felt like freedom. Then the cost revealed itself. I tried to speak to a stranger one afternoon, asking for the time. He looked through me confused, then glanced at his watch without answering. My voice carried no weight. Conversations slid around me as if I were mist. The witness was gone from the air, but something else remained. Absence. Without belief anchoring me, I was dissolving. I found Emily sitting alone in a cafe days later. She stared out the window, stirring a cold drink. "You left," she said quietly, without looking at me. I sat across from her. "You can see me." She nodded, barely, her eyes filled with tears. "The world is moving again," she said. "People are planning weddings, trips, futures, but something is missing." "Me," I whispered. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Wonder. The future feels dull now, safe but empty." That was when I understood the final trick. The witness had not been the future itself. It had been awe. Fearful awe, but awe nonetheless. By erasing it, I had flattened tomorrow. That night, fireworks exploded illegally somewhere across the city. Small scattered bursts, desperate. I looked up by instinct. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a flicker, not of fire, but of possibility. The witness was not returning, but something new was forming. A quieter hunger, the desire to feel something coming. People began gathering again, not to see the future, but to escape the present, and I realized my disappearance had only delayed another cycle. Someone would always stand too close to hope. I walked into the night unseen, knowing the last truth. The future I thought invisibility would protect me from responsibility. I was wrong. Being unseen did not mean being uninvolved. It meant watching without the ability to intervene. Months passed. Spring arrived quietly without celebration. No countdowns, no public clocks. Time moved again, but people treated it like fragile glass. I drifted from city to city unnoticed. Wherever I went, the same pattern followed. Small gatherings at night, people staring upward, not for fireworks, but for signs, for feelings, for something to lean toward. Hope had become dangerous. In one town, I watched a group of teenagers release a single homemade firework behind an abandoned mall. It burst weakly, barely lighting the sky. Still, they cheered. For a second, I felt it, a pressure familiar and faint, not the witness, something younger, something learning. I followed the feeling until it led me to a girl sitting alone on a playground swing, staring at her phone screen, reflecting the dark sky. She looked up suddenly. "Did you see that?" she asked no one. I stepped closer. "Do not look ahead," I whispered, though I knew she could not hear me. She smiled anyway. "It feels like something is waiting," she said softly. The words chilled me. I began to understand that wonder always seeks a shape. If the future is denied, it will create a substitute. Symbols, myths, promises. The witness had been one expression. Others would follow. I returned to the city where everything began. The plaza was clean now, scrubbed of paint and candles. But at night, people still passed through slowly as if expecting something. Emily stood there one evening watching the empty sky. She looked older, steadier. "You are still here," she said without turning. "Yes, you did what you thought was right. I am not sure anymore." She faced me, fully meeting my eyes. Neither am I. Around us, people gathered instinctively, forming a loose circle, though they did not know why. I felt the air tighten. A child pointed upward. Everyone followed. I closed my eyes, knowing I could no longer stop what came next. Somewhere above us, something new learned how to be seen. The thing that learned to be seen did not arrive all at once. It grew slowly inside ordinary moments, the way mold grows in quiet corners. No single event announced it. No scream marked its birth. It emerged through attention. I stayed near the plaza after that night, watching patterns reform themselves with subtle differences. People no longer waited for fireworks. They waited for coincidence, for alignment, for moments that felt charged. A clock stopping at the same minute each day. A stranger saying the same sentence twice. A child predicting rain before the clouds formed. These moments gathered followers. Online, they called it the near future. Not a vision, not a prophecy, just a feeling that something was about to happen, and that feeling was enough. The new thing fed on anticipation, stripped of imagery. It did not show futures. It promised them. Emily became one of its quiet architects. She organized small meetings, not publicly, not loudly. People sat in circles, sharing moments when they felt the pull. No one looked upward anymore. They closed their eyes. I tried to warn her. "This is how it starts again," I said. She shook her head calmly. "No, this is different. No images, no witnesses, just readiness." That word sent a chill through me. Readiness was the purest form of waiting. The pressure returned heavier than it had been in months, not sharp like the witness. Broad, enveloping, comforting. The new presence did not frighten people. It soothed them. I followed Emily to one of the gatherings held in an old community center. Candles flickered softly. The room hummed with shared breath. Someone spoke. "I feel like something is coming, but I am not afraid." Others nodded. I stepped forward, trying to be seen. "Stop this," I shouted. No one reacted. I no longer existed to them. The presence filled the room, warm and immense. I understood the horror fully then. The witness required fear. This did not. Hope had learned how to hunt. The meeting ended peacefully. People left smiling, lighter than before. Outside, the sky was empty. No fireworks, no visions, just the certainty that tomorrow mattered again. And that certainty was enough to start the cycle anew. I stood alone, knowing my role had changed once more. I was no longer the interruption. I was the memory of what happens when hope is left unchecked. And somewhere in the hope did not scream when it arrived. It whispered. That made it harder to fight. Fear announces itself. Hope convinces you to lean closer. I followed the near future gatherings from a distance, watching how people changed. After attending, they slept better, smiled more, spoke with certainty. They stopped doubting tomorrow. That certainty was the infection. The old witness demanded attention through terror. This new presence fed on reassurance. It promised meaning without images, direction without vision. People no longer needed to see the future. They felt entitled to it. I realized then that my disappearance had only removed friction. I was no longer blocking the gaze. I was irrelevant. To end the cycle, someone had to reintroduce uncertainty. Someone had to remind the world that tomorrow is not owed. I went back online for the first time in months. Accounts created in my name appeared instantly as if waiting. The myth of me still lingered, half remembered. I posted a single message everywhere. The future is not promised. The response was immediate and violent. Accusations, ridicule, threats. People needed hope more than truth. Emily came to see me that night. "You are hurting them," she said calmly. "I am helping them." "No," she replied. "You are frightening them. Fear is honest. Hope is kinder." That was the lie. The near future required consent, just like the witness had. But its consent was comfort, not terror. I had one option left: to become frightening again. I staged a final interruption. On the last night of March, I cut the power to the community center during a gathering. Darkness swallowed the room. People gasped. I spoke loudly, letting my voice carry. "There is nothing waiting for you." Panic rippled. Someone cried. In the darkness, imagination ran wild, without guidance, without comfort. The presence recoiled. It could not survive uncertainty. When the lights returned, the room felt empty. People left shaken, angry, uncertain. Emily stared at me with something like grief. "You broke it," she said. "No," I corrected. I reminded it of reality. As I walked away, I felt the pressure dissolve completely. For the first time since the last firework, the air was clear. The future the world did not thank me for breaking the near future. It recoiled. People do not like having hope taken away, even when that hope is poisonous. Fear returned, but it was scattered, unorganized, raw. Without a shared future to lean toward, humanity fractured into millions of private anxieties. News outlets called it the quiet panic. Cities were calm on the surface, yet emergency lines stayed busy. Therapists were booked for months. People asked the same question again and again: what comes next? No one had an answer. Emily disappeared after the night I cut the power. Not vanished like I once had. She chose to leave. Her last message was short: "You broke what made people feel safe." I read it over and over, knowing she was right and wrong at the same time. Safety had been the trap. Weeks passed. The sky stayed empty. No fireworks, no signs. For the first time since childhood, New Year's Eve arrived without anticipation. I stood alone on December 31st, watching people drift home early, unsure how to mark the moment. Midnight passed quietly, unnoticed by most of the city. The future did not lean in. I thought it was over. That was my mistake. At 12:07, a single firework exploded somewhere far away, sharp and defiant. The sound echoed longer than it should have. I felt it immediately, not pressure, recognition. Someone had chosen to look again. The cycle did not need crowds anymore. It only needed one person willing to believe that tomorrow mattered more than now. I followed the sound through dark streets until I found a man standing alone in an alley, staring upward, smiling softly. "I have never felt so sure," he said without turning. I stopped several steps behind him. "Do not look too closely," I warned. He laughed. Everyone says that when they are afraid, the sky flickered faintly. I understood the final truth. You cannot erase the future. You can only delay who becomes its witness. I stepped back into the shadows, knowing my role was not to stop the cycle. It was to follow it, to stand close enough to warn, and to watch the watcher when the next. I followed the man from the alley at a careful distance. He walked with purpose, not urgency, as if the future itself had already chosen his pace. Every few steps he looked up, smiling faintly, waiting for something only he could sense. This was how it always began, not with terror, with certainty. I remembered myself on that first New Year's Eve, standing beneath fireworks, believing I had glimpsed meaning. I recognized the posture, the tilt of the head, the stillness of someone listening to tomorrow. He stopped at the edge of a small park, empty at night. Snow dusted the benches. The city hummed distantly, unaware another witness was forming. "You do not have to do this," I said, stepping into the light. He turned surprised, but not afraid. "Do what?" "Become the one who looks too closely." He studied me, eyes sharp, curious. "You sound like someone who has already failed." That was fair. I told him my story, not all of it, just enough. Fireworks, visions, cycles, watchers. I spoke without urgency, without drama. Facts, not prophecy. He listened patiently. When I finished, he smiled again. "You are afraid of hope," he said gently. "No," I replied. "I am afraid of what hope becomes when it demands witnesses." The sky flickered faintly above us, almost embarrassed. He looked up instinctively. I stepped between him and the sky, blocking his view. "Do not look," I said firmly. For a moment he hesitated. I felt the future pull at him like a tar. Then he laughed and stepped around me. "You cannot protect everyone," he said. The flicker brightened. The air tightened. I knew then I had reached the edge of my role. Warnings were no longer enough. The cycle required choice. I did the only thing left. I looked up with him. The sky burst open, not with fireworks, but with layered moments, countless possible tomorrows stacked and shimmering. The pressure slammed into me, unbearable. The man gasped, overwhelmed. I stayed. I anchored the moment, absorbing the weight, refusing to step aside. The visions faded. The sky went dark. The man collapsed, sobbing, confused, emptied. When he looked up again, there was nothing to see. "What did you do?" he whispered. I smiled, tired. "I stood where you would have stood." He ran. I remained. As dawn crept in, I understood the cost. Every time someone was about to become a witness, I would have to stand closer, and time stopped measuring itself in days. Once I accepted my role fully, I lived between moments, now arriving only when someone stood on the edge of becoming a witness. I felt them before I saw them, a tightening in the air, a subtle pull towards certainty. Years passed without aging, touching me the way it should have. My reflection remained steady while the world around me shifted and renewed itself. New buildings rose, old fears faded, but the instinct to look ahead never left humanity. It only grew quieter. People no longer gathered in crowds. They found their moments alone. A rooftop at midnight, a deserted highway, a hospital window at 3 in the morning. That was where I found the next one. A woman stood at the end of a hospital corridor, staring through the glass at the city lights below. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. She knew. I approached slowly. "You are waiting for something," I said. She nodded. That sentence never changed, no matter who spoke it. I stood beside her, not blocking the view yet. "Meaning is dangerous," I said softly. She smiled. "So is living without it." The glass reflected us both. For a moment, the sky beyond shimmered, layered futures pressing close. My strength was fading. Each time I anchored a moment, it took more from me. The visions burned longer. The pressure lingered deeper. I could feel the day coming when I would not be able to stand in front of the sky anymore. I made a choice. I stepped aside. The shimmer intensified. She gasped, tears streaming as possibilities rushed in. I watched carefully. She breathed. The futures narrowed on their own, collapsing into uncertainty. The sky darkened naturally. She turned to me, confused, shaken but intact. "Is it gone?" she asked. "No," I replied. "It chose you differently." She left, carrying no certainty, no prophecy, only questions. As dawn broke, I understood something I had missed. The cycle did not demand guardians forever. It demanded teachers. Not everyone who looks becomes lost. Some learn to look without surrendering the present. I walked away lighter, knowing my end was near, but not meaningless. The last firework would not end with me standing alone beneath it. Someone else would learn to look. I am writing this because stories still matter. Even now, especially now, they are the last safe place to put a future without letting it look back at you. I am older finally. Time has reclaimed me slowly, gently, the way it should have all along. My hands shake when I write. My reflection no longer frightens me. It simply reminds me that I am almost finished. The world did not collapse after I stepped away. It adapted. Humans learned something fragile and difficult: to hope without staring. Fireworks still exist, but they are quieter now. Scattered moments of light rather than collective rituals. Most people look only long enough to smile, then look away. Children are taught early that some questions are better left unanswered, not because answers are dangerous, but because obsession is. Once a year, I feel it faintly, a ripple like a memory stretching its fingers. Someone somewhere standing under a bright sky, wondering what comes next. I no longer run toward them. I trust what I have seen. Most will look away. A few will not. And when they do, the future will show itself briefly, honestly, and then retreat. No witness, no guardian, no teacher, just a moment and the choice of what to do with it. Tonight it is New Year's Eve again. I sit by the window listening to distant laughter, distant music, distant explosions of light. I allow myself to look once. The sky blooms color and sound. Nothing else. No visions, no layered tomorrows. Just beauty and noise and people welcoming another uncertain year. I smile because the future is still there, but it no longer needs us to watch it. If you are listening to this story on a cold night with fireworks outside, remember this: the moment you feel something leaning too close behind you, do not scream, do not run. Simply look away and let tomorrow arrive on its own. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel and